Erik Horne here from Andscape with Clinton Yates, Jean-Jacques Taylor, and Bill Rhoden. And we are here the day after Colorado beats Utah 49-24. Guys, I've been thinking about this one right here, okay? Just humor me for a second, all right? You can't spell CFP without college. Y'all like that?
Wow.
Y'all like that on a Sunday morning?
Is that what you've been working on, Erik? This is your material for the week.
You see how I came at him? What do y'all think about that one?
It's kind of early in the morning, man. You got to repeat that. Can you repeat it slower?
My 4-year-old liked that. He thought it was good. No, man. But look, we got like we said last week, we got a real football team on our hands, y'all. Like, I was out mostly yesterday at a kid's soccer game, but I turn on the game and I see a real football team getting stops, splash plays on defense, which we could have never imagined last season. We probably got the first Heisman Trophy winner at Colorado since 1994. The great running back Rashaan Salaam.
Rest in peace.
In 94. Yeah. And then, aside from the college football playoff thing, which things still need to play out, obviously, they've got to win their last 2 games against Kansas. They got to beat Oklahoma State. They got to win the Big 12 title game. I go on ESPN this morning and they're either in most of our .com writers' top 15 or they're on the cusp. But aside from all of that, Deion Sanders has a good football team. That's what I take from this weekend. And we couldn't say that last year, y'all. We didn't even know if we could say that after they lost to Nebraska in the beginning of the year. So, Clinton, you weren't on last week. We were able to kind of talk about a lot of this stuff that we're getting into right now. I mean, what do you take away from, what you saw yesterday? Second game in a row, they go on the road and convincingly win in conference play. What do you take from that? And also, just humor me on my Colorado football play. Please.
Decent wordplay. I'll give your wordplay a B+. I'll give your delivery a C. It's way too early in the morning for that nonsense. So you got to work on that. But here's what I'll say. I'll say. I wasn't here last week, but there's a couple things to what you introduced that I want to get at. The idea that they didn't have a good football team last year, I think, is one that is worthy of a little nuance. There is a difference between having a good football team, having a bad football team, and having a team that does not know how to win. I think that they were closer to that latter category last year than they were anything. Look around the college football world. Heck, look around the Big Ten alone. Defenses are not at some loud premium on a regular basis. I can point to a team that plays down the street from where I live, the USC Trojans, where defense is out of the window with a guy like Lincoln Riley, who was considered or was, before he got to the Trojans, some sort of major offensive mastermind, and they didn't even act like they cared about defense. So that be said. Moving over to this year, Warren Sapp comes in, as Bill Rhoden eloquently chronicled. They've got a team that knows how to win as much as they have talent. Now, I was taking a look at the stats yesterday because I watched every snap of this game. They lost the time of possession battle 36-24. They did not have the ball long. They were 2 for 2 on 4th downs, and they were 8.3 yards per pass. What that tells me is that this is a team that now knows what they know how to do best and sticks to that level of execution. They're not just relying completely on big plays, turnovers, and the other team kind of messing up or getting rattled at the whole show. They are actually stopping guys in gaps. They're actually running the football, and there's a composure element to what they're doing that I think is as impressive as anything. So we can get on for days about whether or not they win. That's not the point. The point is they're hard to beat. And in college football, that is often half the battle, specifically when you're referring to a team that's in kind of a dicey conference from a competition standpoint. Kansas was picked to be number 2 in that conference when the season started. So them upsetting BYU wasn't that big of a surprise last night. That being said, that is what I'm most impressed with. The football has gotten better, but the general vibe of the team. If you listen to Shedeur Sanders yesterday after the game, he talked about how they're playing complementary football. The defense is playing well. The offense isn't just doing their thing and getting out of there so that the guys on the other side of the ball are huffing and puffing the whole time. They've really figured out how their entire system works, and it's managed to get them some wins. But to me, it's not a huge change in, oh, all of a sudden we got talent, we're just doing whatever. No. This has been methodical, and it's worked well.
I'm going to backbite just a little bit because I think a lot of that is true, but they definitely lack talent on the defensive offensive lines last year that played a big role in them not being able to compete against the better team, not even the better teams, just compete, for 4 quarters. And now you see their ability to rush with 4 allows them to play coverages in the back, and they can. I mean, I think they're one of the top teams in the NCAA in sacks. They can run. They don't run the ball well, but they run it enough that you got to pay attention to it. And they still don't protect Shedeur well, but they protect him enough that he can do his thing. And so I think when you put all of those things together, and then you combine, they understand how to win. That's what makes them them. The other thing is, man, they got playmakers all over the field, offense, defense. Like, who's this Draylon Moore dude yesterday? He just popped up, and all of a sudden he got a 100-yard game. They had Omarion Miller earlier this year. He just popped up, had a 100-yard game. And Jimmy Horne didn't even play yesterday. And so, who's this running back who just burst through for 37-yard touchdown? So they just have guys who just pop up and make plays on offense. And then on defense, hey, Shiloh made a big play at the end of the game yesterday. How about that?
Once again, bringing the pass rush, like you said, JJT, they had 4 sacks today. I think that brings them to, they had already exceeded their season total, by last week from the previous season. Competency on both sides of the ball. Bill, what'd you see?
I just see a hell of a team, and I think both of you guys made great points. I would say, last year, I don't know if we have consensus on that. I didn't know that they were really a really good team last year. They and I think maybe Clinton, you made the point. I do think this year they learned how to win, because remember last year there are a couple of games that they had in hand and they blew it. Stanford comes to mind.
Yeah.
They almost beat SC. They could have won that game against SC at home and just, kind of threw it away.
Yeah, so I do think that they've learned how to win. I think, but I also think a part of that is that they've got some personnel that brings it home. And particularly, I look at defense. I think, man, that defense is really first rate. I'm looking at the Georgia Tennessee game, and I guess my question is, as you watch these other teams play, like in the SEC, the Big Ten, can Colorado compete with the best teams in the Big Ten? That's what I look at when I look at these other guys. Could Colorado compete with like an Oregon? Remember last year they weren't even in the same universe as Oregon. It wasn't even. It was close. It wasn't even close. So I think this year, man, as JJT pointed out, you got great playmakers. I mean, there is no Travis Hunter anywhere in the country. Nobody is playing like that. And you're right. They're not a great running team, but they're running well enough that you got to respect it. I think Shedeur has grown. I think we've kind of reduced the hero balls, I call it. Some of it is a function of the offensive line. Some of it is a function of just the way he plays. And I think that he's matured enough. So I guess I'll end this by just saying I think that, and trust me, I think Deion has grown too. I think, everybody's grown across the board. So I think that with BYU's losing yesterday, I think the door is wide open. So 2 more hurdles to go. Again, they're playing teams that they should beat, right? Will they beat them? And I think and then, man, going into the season, I think we all agreed last year was great for us because Deion was the gift that kept giving. I mean, what I'm saying? It was just perfect for us. But this year, I think we all agreed that, okay, it's about football. It's about football this year. And I think he's met the challenge, man. They have put together a hell of a team.
Can I just say this quickly? To your point, Bill, about Shedeur. He threw a pick on the first play of this game.
Right.
Last year, that team doesn't recover from that. Right. This year, they do. And that's from a quarterback standpoint. That's from a general team standpoint. And he said after the game, I owe my defense dinner. You know what I mean? He's being funny, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I refer to teams that know how to win and their composure being better. And just quickly, too, referring to BYU and some of these other teams, and I know a lot of this is kind of internet palaver, so to speak, but like they can only play the teams in front of them.
Yeah.
Their opponents are the ones on the schedule. They don't need to be better than every team in the country every week of the year and in the offseason. That's not how any of this works. And so, Bill, to answer your question, do I think that they can compete week in and week out with Georgia and Alabama? No, but who cares? They don't have to. That's not how this is set up. Can they beat any team that's put in front of them that's been on their schedule so far on any given Saturday? I think so. And that's ultimately why the playoff is such an intriguing and a fantastic situation for this game overall, because we ain't got to worry about all that. The power rankings are legitimately kind of immaterial versus the actual polls and rankings. And that's where I think this team, from a confidence standpoint, really does have an advantage over a lot of these other teams because the expectations aren't there in the same way. They're not necessarily beating the hell out of themselves every single week of the year in the Big 12. And they probably look like a team that's going to have the most confidence and the most just general body rest based on the type of football they play going into what's going to be the stretch run.
Yeah, the other thing about the stretch run is their two best players ain't scared. And you take your tone from your two best players or your best players in general. Those guys set the tone. They're not going to walk into any game thinking we can't win. And that's half of college football is that. Some people show up and go, oh, we're playing Oregon, we're playing Ohio State. We can't win today. Let's just try to compete and see what we can do. They go in thinking, oh, we can win. And if it's close at the end, we know we can win.
Yeah, and JJT, I thought about what you were saying just now about guys that you hadn't heard of making plays for this team, and we had talked about, at different junctures of covering this, would they have the depth to be able to, sustain injuries, to be able to play against these teams that have better depth? We might get to see it because if they win the Big 12, we're going to get to see if they could put all this together against a team from a different conference that may have what we see on paper is better depth. But for them to even be in this position, we keep coming back to this, is something that we wouldn't have fathomed when we were sitting in the press box last year watching them against USC, and USC basically running a fast break up and down the field on them every time they got the ball.
Right.
That's something, man. When you just said it, Eric, I just laughed when you said if they win the Big 12. And it was just to hear that because a year ago, it was like almost laughable. That was not in the case. Now it's like really, not only that is a real possibility, but like you said, Clinton, they don't have to win the entire season. All they got to do is win one game. That's all they have to do. And I think if nobody gets hurt, and clearly Shedeur didn't get hurt, Travis doesn't get hurt, I think right now they are in position to beat on one game, on one afternoon. I think they could beat. The only thing I'm thinking might be, I don't know. I'm like looking at Oregon, and they're a handful. I'm looking at Ohio State, they're a handful. But again, man, on one given day, neither of those teams have a Travis Hunter. And frankly, I'm not sure if either of them have Shedeur. On a good day, to be honest with you. And let me just put this out there. I don't know what you guys think when we talk about Shedeur, and I've come across, we've talked about LeBron and Bronny. And I think that in some ways, Shedeur has the opposite curse in that, he's really great, but but he's Deion's son, and he kind of had to outlive that. But I really think he has proven, man, that he is probably as good as any quarterback in the country,
The thing about him is he's not anything like his dad as an athlete. So he doesn't get those types of, well, he should be doing this or he should be doing that. Because anybody, amongst the family, Shiloh was the one who got all the genes and the great genetics that can do all the athletic stuff. And even he pales in comparison to Deion. So, with Shedeur, he's never been the best athlete. And so he's always had to operate within the confines of, I can only do so much athletically. The rest of it has to be cerebral for me. And that's one reason why he's going to go high in the draft is when he gets up on the board and talks football, it's not going to be a problem because against every coverage you can name, this is where I go, this is where I go. And we all know that executives love that.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing happening there too with the scouting and sort of the look at Shedeur, which is, and this is a whole other discussion I've had on many different platforms about quarterback being the worst coach position in the NFL, but that has to do with scouting as well, which is that people look at somebody if they don't have off the charts measurables or they don't have some insane amount of wins or some other thing that people think should be obvious to you that they are therefore not going to translate to the NFL level. His coachability is off the charts, obviously. If to what JJT's point is, clearly this is a smart football player who understands the culture of the game. If I'm a GM in the NFL now, that is as valuable to me as some kid that plays for, I don't know, Duke or whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's 6'7" and got a rocket arm, but can't win a daggone game against Wake Forest or whatever it may be. Like, there are intangibles with Shedeur that I think a lot of people are underplaying simply because his last name is Sanders, that once you get into a room, as you said, is going to be obvious and is going to be worth taking a chance on because development is still a part of what this is. That guy to me seems like he scales up so well to what the NFL game can be. And that's not to say that he's going to go in to the NFL and then instantly win Rookie of the Year or instantly be a Pro Bowler or instantly take a team to the playoffs. It means he's not going to be terrible and he's not going to put your team in an awful situation because he doesn't understand the moment and the measure of what's going on. That's the thing for me about Shedeur, is that he scales up very nicely to the next level of the game for me, from a brain standpoint and a physical standpoint. And that's not just athleticism. That's his ability to endure the hits it takes to be in the NFL.
See, this brings up one other point that I know we're supposed to hit on is where he goes. I mean, we talked about what role would Deion play in kind of manufacturing where Shedeur goes. Does he go to the right spot? And I do think that maybe with anybody you could argue that, but with Shedeur, I think it is important that he gets to the right place. And I don't know if we're going to get to that now, but what role will Deion play? I don't even know what role you can play into making sure he gets to the right
you
spot.
can play a role as long as you're the top quarterback taken, or maybe the second quarterback taken.
Yeah.
After that, you can't play it. You don't have no control.
Well, let's talk about it. You know, it's like I'm looking at, and this is going to change based on Sunday's results, but I'm looking at the draft order right now. It would be Jacksonville. They've got Trevor Lawrence. Giants, they're in play. Tennessee, in play. Cleveland, they should be in play. Las Vegas, in play. New England just drafted a quarterback last year. And I'm going to stop at my New Orleans Saints at 7. Please, Lord Jesus, keep losing. Please give me an opportunity to root for this man for the next 10 years.
Erik's going to have a new job because his job will be Saints Shedeur Sanders superfan, triple S at that point. Excuse me, quadruple S at that point.
Shedeur Sanders, hype man and tour guide, because I'm going to have him at my parents' house in Laplace, Louisiana, eating good food and making sure he's well taken care of and supported, because that young man needs all the support he can get. Honestly, I don't even know if I wish that on him at this point, because the Saints have been a train wreck for a little while. So I don't even know if I want to wish that on him. It might be similar to Colorado if he goes to the Saints, because they don't have an offense.
Yeah. Please don't have him go to the Saints. To the Saints there.
Of those teams, I don't know where Deion would necessarily want him to be. I mean, maybe Las Vegas. Despite the fact that
Vegas would probably be the spot, because Tom Brady's there. Shedeur's known Brady for years. They have a good relationship. He would probably think with Tom Brady there, the organization would be stable. If I'm not mistaken, I think he just dropped some love on Antonio Pierce the other day, even though I don't know if Antonio Pierce will be the coach next year.
Yeah, but that's gonna be some good love for him on the way out. That's what that's going to be.
But the Raiders would have to go up to go get him. Tennessee is interesting with Rand Carthon. And, the Giants, you got the media capital of the world. But, I don't know how he feels about that organization. And they kind of shady with the way that they handled the Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley situation.
To be honest with you, I would not really mind, since we're talking in the ideal world, I really wouldn't mind if some kind of way he would end up in Los Angeles, the Rams, because you've got a great quarterback who's not going to be there for much longer.
That's true.
And I think it's L.A., But I just think in terms of work-wise, Stafford is a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback. I think he'd probably be a great teacher, and he's going to be there for a couple of years. And I think Shedeur probably needs a couple of years just to not be thrown into the fire.
This is an excellent question, which is whether or not the maneuverability element we're referring to with Deion is one that gets him taken higher or lower. Because the assumption is that the idea is that Deion is going to just install wherever he wants to go. And that might not be a team that necessarily needs a guy immediately. I feel like that's something that's under discussed. That's a good point, Bill. And when we think about Sean McVay, whatever, photographic memory, super brilliant football mind, that is a meeting of the minds that I think does make a reasonable amount of sense. Cooper Kupp is there. They've got weapons. Puka Nacua, a guy who's a great young player. That actually, I haven't thought about that, Bill. I enjoy that conversation a lot because, frankly, and goes back to what I was saying before, let's think about a Patrick Mahomes. Let's think about when he came into the league. Remember what happened? Alex Smith was ahead of him. They won 11 games the year before. Patrick Mahomes only played in 4 games his rookie year, and they were all blowouts on the back end of the year. Then Smith got injured. Then Mahomes started playing. Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator then. There's no guarantee for success that when you get thrown into the water, this is part of my point about the terrible coaching of quarterbacks in this league, that you're going to be any good. The situation with the franchise is one thing. The situation on the field is another. I'm of the belief that playing behind a guy for a little bit always helps. You know what I mean? And that's an on-the-field matter. Tom Brady in the owner's booth is one thing. An actual guy on the field who actually is willing to show you something or another is another. And I've always felt that, regardless of who the quarterback is. And I would like to see, hopefully, a situation like that for Shedeur where he's not immediately just thrown out there and everybody from a criticism standpoint, never mind a football one, is looking at him as some kind of savior as soon as he steps into minicamp.
But, he's going to be one of the few quarterbacks who's prepared to play early, and here's why. If you look at the guy in Dallas, Trey Lance, who's his career is basically done to me because he's not going to get a chance to play unless somebody gets hurt. The rest of his career, he's thrown fewer than 800 passes, 900 passes since he was in high school. Now compare that to a guy like Shedeur, who's a 4-year starter in high school, Texas high school football, so it's a little different. Been a 4-year starter in college who's going to throw 1,200 passes by the time he graduates. That's a lot of football he's played, a lot of things he's seen, a lot of things he's experienced. And so that equips him to play early, even though in the perfect world, you don't have to play him early. But we know that's the lie. You're going to play early. Anthony Richardson played early, even though what did they tell us about Anthony Richardson when they drafted him? Oh, we got to develop him. We got to give him time. He's young. He doesn't know a lot about the game. He needs some experience. Okay, first year he in there, week 6, 7, 8, whenever he showed up. So if they draft you in the top 10, they playing you early. If they draft you in the first round, they probably playing you early. And so he's equipped to play, even if you hope that he don't have to.
Yeah, I'm not implying that he doesn't need to play, that he's not equipped to play. That's not what I'm getting at. And to be quite frank, JJT, respectfully, the Dallas situation is so screwed up that I can't really use them in a comparative context to any NFL team
I gave you Anthony Richardson.
that knows what they're doing. And you know what I'm saying? And the Colts also a little bit up there in terms of my point is that I don't necessarily believe that when people talk about Deion being a part of the process, that means he's trying to necessarily get him to number one. I think that the parameters of what makes a good situation are a little wider than the average fan looks at and says, well, that just means he's trying to get him the most money. No, they rich, bro.
No, they ain't worried about that.
Right. Yeah. That's such a great point that you make, because I think with Shedeur, it's not number one, it's where you go. I think that is the most important thing, is where you go. And getting back to a guy like the Rams, they form such a protective shell around Shedeur that it's going to get your master's and doctorate degree, where he's there, he's learning, he's in an environment that he likes. He likes Los Angeles, and you're learning with one of the great quarterbacks, and who's secure. Stafford had already accomplished everything. Right. He's not intimidated by this kid, and would like to teach him. So yeah, I think there's thing. Last thing, or maybe not the last thing, but one part of the thing is Shedeur. The second part is, what about Deion? Where did he land? I know JJT, you think he stays put.
I mean, I keep sending y'all stuff. He's not going to the league. I don't think, unless
I don't think he starts.
I mean, I can't. Really
I mean, the Raiders gave John Gruden
$100
million guaranteed, and now that guy's working for a network that we don't even name. So, like, the money, you know what I'm saying, is a factor, dog.
See, I don't think the money's a factor.
Okay.
I think opportunity. I don't really believe it because of the reasons I've mentioned many, many times. Like, he likes showing young men how to grow. Yeah. And if you heard some of I see y'all clips of this all the time. When he talks about players, he doesn't talk in terms of an NFL voice. He talks in terms of a father figure college voice because that's what he likes to do. And even if you see the little clip of him, arms outstretched, to hug the former walk-on running back who scored the first touchdown of his career the other day. That's not an NFL moment. He's too warm and fuzzy at one level for that. And the only reason I say money doesn't matter is, and we've had this conversation, there's not an amount of money you can offer him that changes his lifestyle. So, and his kids are already independently rich. So he ain't even worried about a legacy. They got money. So you're not changing my lifestyle. There's no money you can offer him. I mean, he can stack it, but even y'all can only spend so much.
Well, JJT.
Easy. Don't test me, JJT. What are we doing here?
Yeah, come
on. Let me just
say
quickly, though, and this is kind of my last thought. This is kind of my last thought on all of this is, in terms of teams where he would go, where it would actually be, I was really kind of hoping the Broncos would be bad for one more year without getting Bo Nix and he could stay in Colorado. I actually thought that would have been a really cool option because that team has found a little love and it would be an interesting way to have your dad close without necessarily being there. But to JJT's point, and this is my last sort of thought on all of this, when people talk about the measurability of success and all that, something we've discussed and we wrote about last year, this has become to me such a story beyond, even more so than it already was, anything having to do with the wins and losses. Unlike y'all, I thought the wins were going to come. I was not worried last year. To me, as I said, I saw a team that didn't know how to win, that needed some talent, but as much needed structure as anything. The human that this guy has been in terms of impact in Colorado has only grown. I think of the story of Offerdahl, the kid who stayed and ended up getting a touchdown yesterday. Because, frankly, I talked to parents who had kids who couldn't stay, who wanted to stay or weren't talented enough to stay, and how much that broke their heart to not be a part of this. I think about Peggy. They had the whole crowd singing to her on her 100th birthday. He made the bowl game like he promised her. I hope she's still with us long enough to see that. I think about the conversation he had on Fox yesterday about fatherhood in general and what that's meant to him overall. And one story that really stuck out to me, and I know that this feels kind of gratuitous because these kind of things happen a lot, but they brought that kid on who they found out had been getting bullied at school. They took him to practice. They gave him some confidence drills. He got to make some friends. And when he asked, Deion did, who wants to take this young man back to school because he's got to be back by noon, Shedeur was the first one who said it will be me. For all of the stuff that we see in college football, people talk about it's cutthroat, it's this and that, man. The building of young men is one thing. The building of community is another. And he has been stellar in that regard in ways that people just ignore. And I'm not saying it's got to overtake wins and losses, but I'm saying that just thinking as a human being in this world who doesn't love sports based on the jerseys or based on whatever, based on experience, man, this dude has really made an impact on me because I didn't know that it was going to be that good. I didn't know that he was necessarily going to have that much of an impact on a community like that where ain't a whole lot of folks that look like us. Meanwhile, you got guys like Brian Kelly cussing out every other player on the sidelines and he can't even seem to keep his mouth shut when his team is losing. That measure of success, to me, Deion is winning by leaps and bounds over some of these other folks, and that's really all I got.
And that's for all those reasons. For all those reasons, that's so compelling, Clinton. That's like a great.
Here come the butt.
That's that. Yeah. No. Yeah. Absolutely. That was so compelling. I'm like riveted. And as you speak, that's why he's leaving. That's why he ain't gonna be there because you've already everything you said. You can't get better than that.
Right.
It cannot get better than that. And your sons are leaving. Travis is leaving. That's another chapter. And I don't know about you, man. We talk about money. That the way I'm thinking. I don't even know what too much money even looks like. In this country,
I hear what you're saying.
What does too much money look like?
I think there's this notion and it's a very American notion of like when you have success at a place, you have to matriculate upwards. Like there's nothing about okay, you get to just stay here and be content with whatever you're doing in the place you're in and be happy. It's like no, you've always got to be, particularly in sports, what's the next thing you can go to? What's the next thing you can elevate to? So my mind, I was always placing him at, oh well, the next SEC program. Like who's the SEC program on the hot seat that's gonna, or Florida State. Oh, Mike Norvell, big buyout. They're not gonna fire him. But not to say that Deion wouldn't be great at Florida State. Or the NFL question always comes up. Oh, is Deion trying to angle for the NFL? What if, like JJT's been saying, like Clinton's talking about with all the community impact he's made, frankly, like you're saying, Bill, or just walking away. What if he's just not angling for anything? What if the dude is just in the moment?
The thing that a lot of people, it's really a couple of things that people don't really realize. We all do this because we're human. We think if we were in this situation, we would do this. And so surely you would do that because we would do that. And that's what makes sense. And this dude, think about it. He ain't never done what people thought was normal or what people thought he should do, ever. Like, who really saw him as an offensive guy? He's the greatest cornerback. He was a play caller and the offensive coordinator when he coached high schools because that's what he liked to do. The other thing is he's a huge lifestyle guy. He loves his life. Who is he associated? Now, you got to be qualified, but he has a great time at work. Why? He coaching with his boys. He's having fun. And fun to him is big. But it's bigger than that. It's just a lifestyle that he likes. When you talk about community, now he lives about 60 miles outside of Dallas, a little small town called Canton. Well, he put himself in that community and he does this wherever he goes, if it's small enough, and Boulder is kind of small enough to do that. Which is he puts himself out there so that you get used to seeing him, so you'll leave him alone, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because when I see you all the time, I don't ever see you. Oh, I gotta go. Now it's head coach prime. A wave and you good. You don't need a picture all the time. He goes to the same 4 or 5 restaurants. He walks in, hey, how you doing? They have it ready for, it's a comfortability factor. And he's done that in Boulder now. He did it in Jackson. And he does this wherever he goes so that he can live a somewhat normal existence. And he doesn't need security every time he goes out just to keep the people at bay. And again, he's got it there. He's coaching with SAP. He's got his boys there. His friends fly in all the time and hang out for 2 or 3 days. It would take a lot to uproot that, And he ain't arguing with the administration like it was at Jackson State.
Well, yeah. All I say is this, man. We are keep this in mind. We are we are in the era now. We are in the era now where the unthinkable is the norm. Okay, where the unthinkable is the norm.
Right.
So everything that we logically will say, that's no longer the norm anymore. So it could be, and there's an ego thing. We don't know if a situation would come about where Deion could actually coach Shedeur in the National Football League, and that is a hell of an emotional and an ego. Everything you said, JT, I get it, but there is this emotional component that we have no way of reading. So, like we say never. All I can think of is think of the most drastic thing that we've said in the past 10 years that could never happen, and it's all happened. So I just think that that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So I love you, JJT. I know you know better than all of us. I'm just saying, man, you just never can tell.
I can't wait. I can't wait till next season when Deion's coaching Shedeur Sanders on the New Orleans Saints. It's going to be great, guys. It's going to be awesome. Saints have a coaching vacancy. That's all I'm saying. No, I think we're good, guys.
Yep.
No, I appreciate the conversation. Outstanding as always. We will be back next week, see what happens after Colorado faces Kansas. And make sure everybody's checking us out on Andscape.com for all the latest on the Buffaloes and Deion Sanders, Shedeur, Travis, and the whole gang. Thanks again.
Let me tell y'all something. I'm on paternity leave soon, but if the Buffaloes and the Fighting Primes go to the college football playoff, America, y'all are going to be sick of me. Understand that.